All right, welcome. Our PowerPoint is on Dead Poet Society, the movie. My name is Zach Antonucci.
I'm Lauren.
And I'm Bridget.
So, the summary of the movie: Neil is a student in a prep school and is inspired by his English teacher, Mr. Keating. Mr. Keating lives by the mantra to seize the day and to live one's life with unhindered self expression. And Neil kind of reflects on this and he desires to pursue his own passion for the arts by participating in a play, which his father does not approve of. Neil has a secret love for acting that he eventually tells his friends throughout the movie. Neil's father, on the other hand, had plans for him to attend an Ivy League school to be a successful individual and to work for the family because Neil's father had worked so hard to put Neil where he is in his life. But Neil's father did not enjoy him acting and pulled him out of the school and away from his friends. Ultimately, Neil ended up taking his own life, overcome with sadness. So this is Neil. Neil's an admirable young man who lives under the control of his father. His secret love for acting and his friend group pursue him through the day and through the school year. He acts as the leader to his large group of friends as they all seem to follow him without hindered and without any hesitation. Neil is the individual who first wanted to discover what the Dead Poet Society is, having read Mr. Keating's old yearbook from when he went to their school. So, hence, throughout this film, Neil has kind of been the focus for the two major themes.
So for parenting styles, sorry, Zach, I need you to click the next slide. Thank you. Unfortunately, the worst parenting style was Neil's father, which is authoritarian. He was really big on the rules and that Neil be very successful, and he did not want him to pursue acting at all. So that made he was more dismissive of his dreams instead of supporting that like an authoritative parent would be. They're more warm and affectionate while also still having control, but they allow for more self-expression, unlike Neil's father did. Next slide, please. So as you can see, the authoritative parent is high in control and warmth, so that facilitates autonomy. They're allowed to negotiate rules and understand why they're being told what to do. But Neil's dad was more of an authoritarian parent where he didn't allow him for self-expression. He was strict and he just pulled him out of school without asking him what he wanted to do. So he really didn't want Neil to act, even though that was his passion. Instead, he wanted him to go to medical school. And that was just non-negotiable. And yeah.
So this is a quote directly from Neil. I discovered I had not lived. This was the first official rekindling of the Dead Poet Society in the caves that they had hunted in the middle of the night to find. These words kind of stopped Neil in his tracks as he read from the journal. It was more of a realization that he hadn't really lived his own life, but he was living through the life of his father and what his father had dreams planned for him. Up until that moment, Neil didn't know what he wanted, but that was the spark of the movie. This next quote: for the first time in my life, I know what I want to do. This was also from Neil. This was when, towards the end of the movie, when Neil discovered his love for acting after seeing a flyer for the local play. He decided to audition against his father's wishes and ended up getting the lead role. And with his excitement, he discovered the love and wants to pursue his acting career instead of the dreams his father has set for him. But his father was clearly not as thrilled as he was. So during the play, Neil performed fantastically in the play. Mr. Keating and all of his friends had the opportunity to see him and see his passion live in person. But prior to the play's beginning, Neil had peeked through the curtains and saw his father staring at him. Shocked that he even came to the play, he still looked displeased in the back. And after the play, Mr. Perry, Neil's father, was quick to inform Neil that he was never to take part in this again. This is prime evidence of Neil's father expressing his authoritarian parenting styles. And the picture here is Neil in his costume during the play, and Neil and his father below having the conversation of Neil was not to act and Neil was to listen to his father's wishes. Ultimately, it came to Neil's bitter end. After the play, and after being scolded by his father, and under the shadow of his father's dreams, Neil felt trapped. He was crushed under what his father's wanted for his whole life and what expectations he had set, but his father never really cared what he wanted for himself. After his father removed him from school and banned him from seeing his friends, he donned his costume from the play, went downstairs into his father's desks, and grabbed his revolver, ultimately taking his own life.
Okay, now we're going to discuss the second theme of peer influences. So we talked about similarities between friends, and we also highlighted selection. And selection is the aspect, and when all these people are grouped together, you're going to be with people who have similar similarities, people who you have things in common with. And one of the main things that connected all these boys is they all went to prep school and it was very elite. They were very wealthy, so all these wealthy boys, it was a lot of competition, a lot of proving who's better than who, and through the socialization of them being together, they actually grew more positively and learned to be more tolerant of one another and more inclusive. And they learned that it isn't just about making it to the next step in your education. It's more about living your life in the moment and choosing every day, which Mr. Keating always tried to show the boys in all his lessons, even if they were more unorthodox, and that was accepted by the staff. Now we're going to talk about Todd Anderson, who is the lead individual. Todd is an individual who Neil meets at the very beginning, and they actually share some of their similar thoughts. Neil actually pushes not only Todd but the rest of their clique to actually be more open to the Japanese society, be more open to Mr. Keating's teachings and what he was saying. And they actually have a kind of bonding moment when Neil's talking about how his father's affecting him in medical school and how he actually really doesn't want that. And Todd also reveals how his father was kind of forcing his older brother to go to law school, but and he wants the same thing for Todd. But Todd actually wants to be a writer, and that's why Mr. Keating's class scares him so much because he's scared to take that step and to really open up and go with his passion. So Neil had a really big influence on everybody, as I previously stated, and he really broke the ice with Todd when he convinced him to live for himself. Todd wasn't really comfortable with the whole dead poet society, and he felt like that meant being vulnerable in front of these other boys, these other prep school boys, and he didn't feel like he would be accepted. But Neil has high sociometric popularity. So when Todd was seeing that all his friends were really looking up to Neil and persuading them to just relax and really be open to Mr. Keating's teachings, it actually pushed forward a lot of growth in the group that they didn't expect to see because they were celebrating their own achievements and their identities and who they really were.
So this is the scene of Todd finding out the unfaithful news that Neil had taken his own life. And a scene like this just kind of shows to or goes to show just how big of an influence Neil had on Todd. He had only met him that year and were friends for a short time, but it obviously broke Todd completely finding out that somebody so influential in his life had taken his own life. based on the actions of pursuing his own dreams and being shot down by his father. And that kind of leads into Neil's legacy. Neil did so much more than just influence Todd. He helped his other friend Charlie go after the girl he wanted to start seeing and dating. He inspired his friends, showed them just how to live instead of just focusing on their schoolwork. Through the lens that Mr. Keating had given Neil and through the textbook that Keating had given Neil for the Dead Poet Society, Neil single-handedly changed each and every one of his friends. Through his influence, he unlocked their own minds, and every single member of the Dead Poet Society jumped down the same path Neil was going. Through Neil's acceptance and encouragement of his peers, and with the guidance of Mr. Keating, the lives of those boys were changed forever, especially Todd. This society stands behind Mr. Keating as he was forced to leave the school even. And this is the big scene towards the end of the movie when Mr. Keating was told to grab his things from the end of the classroom, and the students were told to remain quiet while he did so. But in conjunction, through Neil's actions after having committed suicide, they all stood on their desks just like they did prior to the movie in class and yelled, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," in recognition of Mr. Keating.
So this is obviously a very emotional movie, but it was released in 1989, but it's taking place in 1959 in England, and most of the characters and the actors who are playing these characters are actually young adults themselves, around 19 or 20, so they're going through things that adolescents and young adults are going through as well. And it's upsetting to see throughout the movie that the viewpoint of the staff for most of them is they're a nuisance and these kids need to be controlled. But Mr. Keating looks at these kids and he really sees potential and he sees that they can do whatever they want and they don't need to live by whatever standards the school or their parents think they should be living by. And this movie really covers a lot of other topics like parental relationships, education, student and teacher relationships, young love, personal identity, and a bunch of other real things that adolescents literally go through every day. So we agreed that the film portrayed adolescents relatively.
And that is it. Thank you for watching. All right.